Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Dr. Patnaik. Thank you for joining us today.
Good afternoon.
Very quickly, good afternoon. The topic that we are going to discuss today on Campus Charcha is accreditation. This is a new topic for us. We've actually done probably a dozen such Campus Charcha sessions, but we've never really discussed accreditation. So it's great that you were willing to talk about this, Professor Patnaik, and I think a lot of people will be interested. Before we get into it, I just want to quickly introduce Professor Dilip Kumar Patnaik. He's the Vice Chancellor of Medicaps University in Indore. Professor Patnaik has had very distinguished roles in multiple universities in senior educational administration roles. He's, as you know, the Vice Chancellor today for over 2 years, almost 3 years now at Medicaps. Previously, he was the Pro Vice Chancellor at Sage University, also in Indore. And previous to that, the Vice Chancellor of Mandsaur University, and then also Vice Chancellor of the Takshila American University Consortium. So, and then before that, Registrar at Thapar. So I think for almost over 10 years now, has held senior leadership positions across multiple institutions. So very rich experience. Interestingly, we were just talking about it. Professor Patnaik's degrees were in oceanography. I know that, so you did your master's and your PhD in that area. But then somewhere along the way, he became interested in law. So he also has a law degree, which is very interesting. So he's both a lawyer and an oceanographer. And of course, has been very involved in all forms of administration, but particularly around curriculum development and education technology. So Professor Patnaik, with that, should we dive right into this issue of accreditation? And maybe we can start by a general view on, why is accreditation important? And, how does it benefit all the different stakeholders, the students, the faculty, and parents and society as well?
Right. Thank you very much, sir, for the nice introduction of mine. So I don't know whether I deserve all this edification.
You do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. Anyway, we'll start with this accreditation. When the word comes to accreditation, so what is the people exactly think about this? All these stakeholders of an institution, they very well know this is one set of official certification of a school or a course of an external regulators. One external regulators, they often give one certification on this. So what exactly?
On that, just not to interrupt you, but to clarify. So often these may not be regulators also, right? They may just be an external body. Yes. Sometimes it's a regulator, sometimes it's an external body.
Sometimes there are regulators. In India, one type of these accreditations are there. They're mostly of the public sector, like NAAC, NBA, all this public sector, they often give this official certification. But coming to the accreditation means it is not up to one sort of ranking. Some of the stakeholders, they confuse about the ranking and the accreditation. Our institution is that rank and this rank. So that is one type of a position of the hierarchical scale. But the accreditation is the official certification. What are the set of courses or standards some of these agencies or the regulators, they have set up. So why this is required and where it is started and why this is required for the higher education? Of course, many people, the higher education, I don't know if I ask the people, many people will give a different answer of the higher education. Some will say it is a higher education for the competence development. Some will say it is an acquiring of the knowledge. And some will say it is some sort of a skill development, etc. So, okay, as we say this in higher education, yes, fine, up to secondary education, this is a basic education what we require. But beyond that, this is not only the education, this is something where it will take us to either to a profession or to lead to some sort of an excellence or some sort of a skill development. So there, it generic things doesn't hold good or doesn't help us with that. So certain standards, certain qualities we have to maintain. And there should be also universal recognition and acceptability. When the universal acceptability and recognition comes, there comes where is the standardization of that? And what type of institution, what type of courses, what type of schools we will accept it. So here I want to just cite one example, and I'm quoting Professor Dinesh Singh, the ex-Vice Chancellor of Delhi University. Once he was on an official tour to Australia, and after when he landed in Sydney, he hired a cab, and he found that the cab driver is an Indian. And after this few minutes of conversation, he discovered that he has the first class honors degree from commerce and one of the reputed schools of Delhi University, which is known for its highest cut-offs. And then he was really surprised and asked, "Mr. Why you are here and driving a cab?" Then he started saying, "Sir, what we will do? After this getting the first class honors degree in commerce, I thought that I will conquer the world and I will go and explore some of the good opportunity for me. Then I landed here. But when I came here and I found that I applied some of the courses, I applied some of my opportunities there, but none of the institution has recognized my degree. And we feel cheated, sir." And he told that I could, "Hamare saath dhoka ho raha hai." So this is, of course, 8 years back story. And this is a fact. And he was surprised. Then he came back in Delhi and started this exploring what has exactly happened. And from there, that school, everyone knows that, which is the commerce school, which is known for as the highest cut-off, they started this accreditation. That means the standardization has not been there, and our courses has not been recognized at par with the global requirements. So from there, we understand that what type of standards we should maintain. Sometimes we feel that at small places, I'm sorry for the word I'm using, at times we've come into the complacency and we are the best college and around and might be the best among the worst. But when we face the outer world, really this we experience what is that. Another example I want to cite here, what about the accreditation. One of the professors, senior professor of IIM Indore, Professor Sundar, he was citing his experience. When this Indore IIM was set up here, they wanted to have some collaboration with some of these US big schools. I don't want to name that school. When they went to that university and proposed that have a collaboration, the dean of that B school asked, "IIM means what? And what is your credentials?" Then Professor Sundar told him, "We are IIM." Then the dean of that B school asked, "So what? What is your credibility? You might be an IIM, but what is your credibility?" So whether you have been recognized by SBM or any sort of accreditation of the global accreditation. So unless you have some standardization, how we can collaborate with you? So whenever this question comes that what other people, rest of the world see us and what are the standards, the global standards we are having, so that standards we have to maintain. So when this question comes about the standardization, acceptance of the public and acceptance for the other organization and equivalence, then the question comes about the accreditation. So then the government has also started here in India. After, of course, they have started from 1999, but exactly after 2007, the Washington Accord came and they realized that, yes, we have to have this certain parameters, certain standards so that we can also compete with the global parameters. So then the accreditation comes. And this accreditation, different accreditation body for a different type of schools, different type of colleges, different type of bodies are there. It may be for a school, it may be for a course and different type of things. Then so many things has come. But accreditation means we need some official certification. We are this much, and so that we can compete, and it is parallel to that. And we, our students, our other stakeholders, our faculty members can have an exchange facility. They can also share the same platform. And then the society, as well as all the stakeholders, the students and the faculty, they will be benefited of this. So this is what accreditation is about, all about.
So just to summarize, one very compelling example from that Australian and example of Professor Dinesh Singh and shows that clearly for students, it's very important for them to have parity and recognition around the world, and I guess also in India to some extent. I mean, I
Yeah.
think, yeah,
Exactly.
when you are going from one country to another or one institution to another, having an accredited course or institution or program clearly makes sense. I suppose it will also help faculty when they are trying for in their mobility between.
Of course, that's great. So in this context, I will just put some light on this. What exactly the benefit of that? Most of these institutions, when they are budding institutions, new institutions, they are busy with this, just setting their feet on this, how to find a grip over this. And they do not understand the accreditation has to be started right from the word go. So because they are busy with this, how to build this, first of all, my curriculum, how to build up my schools and how to set up. But once they realize this is required and how it is be benefited. Mostly what happens, we like academicians and our bosses like the chancellors, to whom we call as academic entrepreneurs. Both of them must understand what exactly this accreditation is beneficial both of us. First of all, it has many benefits. Tangible benefits are little less, but there are so many intangible benefits. But when you look deep into that, we realize at the end of the day or the long run, it gives us a huge dividend. If I speak about this society, first let us, what are the different parameters and different bodies are there and how it is helping the society, management, institutions, faculty, students. Let us discuss on that. First, let me start about the society. If the society is there, first, whatever this society has, first gets the formal recognition and the formal competence and reliability. If I say that from India in context, if an Indian degrees are there, the Indian degree is not only being recognized, the Indian also gets this recognition and the reliability. If a degree, if you obtain from in India, if one goes there, they rely on this degree. So that is the society, what the most of the benefits goes to that. Indirectly, we are also contributing to the national building. And second is the management. If one accreditation institution gets this accreditation, most of these opportunities, the door opens. First of all, financial assistance from different funding bodies. First, they say it may be AICT, it may be UGC or whatever this. First, they question, are you accredited? Whether you have some sort of accreditation. So this first door of financial assistance opens to that. And the corpus creation may be there. And the intangible benefits is there. The cost reduction, but when you put all your schools in a collegium style, and you put this and how to use this different schools resources collectively, your cost reduction and redundancy will be there, and it eliminates a trade barrier. This institution can go, the management could go and have a collaboration with or some sort of MOU with some industries there and some of the institutions there. So this barrier, it will eliminate the barrier. Then what the institution gets out of this? The institution gets, first is reliability and increase the competence. And second is public industry collaboration they get. The research and patent, they will come from this. Once the institution have some collaboration with the industry, the patent, the research will increase. And active alumni supports also there. And second, and the third thing is branding of that institution person. Of course, ultimately, at the consequences, revenue generation will be definitely there. That will be the byproduct of the institution. But the faculty members, most of these institutions, they think that accreditation, what the benefit directly we get as a faculty member. But that is most of the intangible, what I say. First is improve teaching and learning quality, research quality. And innovation product designs are there. And many more networking will be there. Once this collaboration will be there, international opportunity will be open. And their credibility out there, social acceptability will be there. And some faculty member, they do not only work for some good packages, they also work for some brand. And the faculty also feel proud that I'm working for this brand, I'm working in this IIT, I'm working in this MIT. So this type of reputed brand also, it will enhance not only their professional, also with the social acceptability also. And of course, non-teaching staff, this is an oversight area, but they will get the skill upgradation when everything will be put into right. This skill upgradation and the good working environment they will get. Most of the paperwork and most of this unnecessary redundancy will be there. And the students, of course, they are the ultimate beneficiaries. ultimate benefits is the door of opportunity will open and the skill development will there. Once you are accredited, accreditation have different parameters, whether you have this thing, whether you have skill up center, whether you have entrepreneurship thing, so many parameters are there. If once it is set up this, definitely the student will get an opportunity for entrepreneurship, they will get an opportunity for skill development, they will get an opportunity for innovation and incubation center. So that is opportunity really, most of the beneficiaries are the students. So these benefits are there and these are intangible benefit. Immediately we may not get it, but in long run definitely pays a huge dividend.
So Professor Patnaik, it will be helpful. That's a very helpful conceptual overview.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get into a little bit of nitty-gritties and
Yes.
also based on your personal experiences, you have been involved in so many institutions, at least 4 or 5 that I could just name in the last 10 years.
Right.
So what is your experience with accreditation in India, for example? Which are the most common bodies and what are the requirements? What are the rules? Which ones have you actually worked with? You may not have worked with all of them, but which ones have you worked with? And maybe we can start with a few questions before that, is there a right time? You know, a lot of people who are on this call, in fact, have asked this question that, you know, Neeru Kumari, who's the administrator at the International School of Management in Patna, is saying, ideally, after how many years of establishment should an institute plan for accreditation? And there are many people who are generally asking the same question.
Right.
Timing
Yeah.
क्या होनी चाहिए? इसके बारे में can you say something about it? How to think about it?
Let me first tell you what type of accreditation bodies are there in India, first of all. Then we'll discuss.
So maybe we can start with that. Yeah. So what are the bodies?
So this most of these commonly NAAC is one of the body that is known as National Assessment and Accreditation Council. So
and sir, so just to be clear, technically all universities are required to be accredited by NAAC, right?
Yes. Now you're coming to the very important.
Please go ahead. Please.
Yeah, important question. So whether an accreditation is required or not, we have discussed it has got manifold benefits. But is it mandatory if I am having an institution or it is a university? Is it mandatory to go for that? No, it is not mandatory. Because this is you are what I say. Accreditation is why I should go for accreditation.
So sir, I can operate a university for 10, 20, 25 years and I'm not.
Yes, now coming to that. Yes, it was there, but recently this MHRD, now this Department of Education, then UGC, they have told that after 2023, every institution must be accredited. It must have some sort of accreditation. So what is this? If one institution started in 2020, how it can get an accreditation in 2023? So what is accreditation? Accreditation says that whatever you are doing, starting from one date of admission of the students until he has get employed or he has got some sort of opportunity in higher education, what was his journey and how was learner's experience there, and how the one cycle has been completed. So that's why to complete on one cycle, it starts from the enrollment. And after this completion, we say that's how the institution reputation is there and how the institution helping the students for their further journey in the society. Might be in the form of some entrepreneurship, might be in the form of some higher education, might be in the form of some sort of placement. And most of these institutions, they give more focus on the placement. But personally, I do not like, because I do not think a university should be a placement agency. It should be a universal education. It should prepare the students to face the rest of the world, the society. So here, what say all the accreditation bodies say, well, one institution must complete one cycle. One cycle, if it is a professional courses, it may be 4 years. If it is in B school, it may be 2 years. If it is a science institution, it may be 3 years. So once you complete 3 years, so this is only the curriculum completion is there. But his further journey, it has to be assessed for another 2 years. We give it to that. Immediately after, He may not show his excellence in some sort of enterprise or some sort of higher education.
Sir, accreditation bodies will also therefore look at the journey post the completion of the curriculum.
Yes, post completion also. Post completion also. I can in मैं एक broadly ये कह सकता हूँ कि आपका journey जो है after completion of a degree also after 2 years, how they are being placed and how they are being encouraged for the higher education, and some sort of marks are also being awarded, points are also being awarded.
So do usually universities provide, should keep this information and provide that information, right?
Yes, they should have. And even both NBA and NAAC, we will discuss elaborately what exactly NBA and NAAC wants. But all the accreditation body, even ABET, including ABET, what is also the international body for this engineering technology, they says it is completion of a curriculum is not enough. Completion of a curriculum is only part of this what of the education or the learning process university provides. The real journey comes and he has to face the challenges of the society only after completion of his curriculum. How he faces that, how we have prepared the student to face the challenges of the society, that is more important. So there have some marks for the placement, this much percentage, for higher education, this much percentage, enterprise, this much percentage. They give a value, some sort of tag on that. So based on that, performance and the quality of an education institution is being assessed. Now your question was, after how many years a university should start for the accreditation? One institution, if it is a professional 4 years courses, they are eligible to submit their accreditation application only after 6 years. 4 years for curriculum and 2 years after that. So in one sentence, if I say 2 years after the completion of the courses. So that makes a cycle complete. If it is a 3 years course, after 5 years. If it is a 2 years course, after 4 years. So at least one cycle.
Yes, sir. Sorry to interrupt, but I just want to get clarity for people. So suppose I am an institution that does 3 years and 4 years and 2 years programs.
Yes.
Then I should still wait for the longest program to be completed.
Yes. Yes.
Only the way to think about
it. Exactly. It makes a sense. And of course, this is no sort of very rigid line that only after longest is. Even say you are having a 2 years courses of 4 or 5 programs and only one program having a 4 years course. So you need not to wait for 6 years.
Right. So those 2 years you can get, so you can get accreditation by courses.
Yes.
But NAAC does the whole institution, doesn't it?
Right, sir. Even for NAAC also.
We'll get to that. But,
Even for NAAC also, even 50% of your programs of 2 years, then you can go for a 2 years program after completion of 4 years. Then the next cycle, you can include the 4 years program.
I see. So you can get yourself accredited for the master's programs.
Yes.
And say that I will come back once my other programs have completed 2 more years.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that's a very useful guideline, a rubric to think about. Now help us interpret all these different agencies. So ek to NAAC is the main one.
So let's make it very simple.
When should I go to NAAC and when should I not go to NAAC? When do I need to go to NAAC? What are the
Yes. Okay. Let's make it very simple. If I am having one institution running 4 or 5 different programs, there are some programs of business, some programs of engineering, some programs of applied sciences are there. So there, I have to go for accreditation for whole institution, whole universities. So accreditation, what it says, NAAC doesn't give any accreditation or certification for any single program. It gives a certification for whole institution. So whatever this curriculum it may be some medicine, maybe some veterinary courses are there, some B schools of business courses are there, engineering courses are putting together. It gives what type of institution it is. So it is this measure is this functioning of the university and what type of research are being going in this university. What are this learners' experience here and how they are being this projected and this placed for this for further journey in the society. So that is being assessed and what are the infrastructure is there and other things. So this is one type for institution. NAAC is there, but another body is NBA.
Sir, before you move on, sir, so if you are an affiliated college or if you are a standalone AICT institution, do you need to go for NAAC or Can you
Yes,
still go
yes,
for NAC?
yes. One affiliated institution also they can go for NAC. Because NAC provides that campus, one campus. If you are having a multiple campus, it doesn't give to that. Because multiple campus is a different type of facility. There you may not having the ERP system or this tech capabilities might be there. So one program, one affiliated college, they are having only one program. They can also go for NAC.
So NAC is not only for universities. NAC is for all types.
All type of institutions.
Okay, fine.
All type of institutions.
Okay.
So university, it may be, and that's why they have different parameters. Very small difference are there. Because institutions, they do not have the autonomy to develop their own curriculum and conduct their own examination and issue their own certificate. What is unlike the universities. So that's why there are some parameters difference are there. Both are having the 1000 points, but some parameter points.
Okay, got it, sir. So you were talking next about NBA, right?
NBA, this is a program specific.
So one sorry, I thought struck me. There was a talk by MOE and UGC some time ago that we will encourage lots of accreditation agencies to be formed, private accreditation. Uska kuch hua hai kya? Has that moved forward, or is it still under discussion?
This is still under this. If I speak of the Western countries, in only Europe, there are almost 47 independent accreditation bodies. 47. And excluding India, in 2 other countries, none of this is under the public control. Everything is independent. Only in India and one more country is there. Two more countries are there. In Japan, it is also publicly controlled. And also in Germany, it's publicly controlled. Except these 3 countries, all this, including when I say CAMHB, when I say CSB, or when I say this SEM or ABET, everything is an independent body. There is no public, that means government control is there.
Okay.
So they are independent body, and we are thinking of that. Now, what happened is when this is also on the process of AICTE, UGC, too many regulatory bodies, they will put on this National Board of the Education will come, whatever this. So that is also on discussion, and probably by end of the 2023, you will get 2 or 3 more accreditation bodies.
Okay. Sorry, sir. We were starting to talk about NBA, and every time I stop.
Yes, NBA. NBA. So far, NBA's purview is little bit limited. First of all, it is a program specific. It is not our institution specific. When we go for the institution, we are having 4, 5, 10, 15 programs are there. We are taking all the programs, and what about the university? We can say this university or this institution is good. But what is good about that? If you say my physics program is good, or my electrical engineering program is good, or my management is good, so that is a program specific accreditation there. So how is the program? What is this diversity of that program, where the students comes, and what is the diversity of the faculty, how they do that, and how this, what type of academic excellence they are having in this particular program, and how the students are proceeding for further. So when you take all these things, this is a program specific. So it may so happen that you may get NAC में जैसे A होता है, A plus होता है. A institution might be having a B also grade in NAC, but there may be some sort of programs you are very good in that. So they may get NBA accreditation also. But
and so does NBA accredit all programs, or are there programs that it will, subjects or areas that it will not?
NBA again, as I told you, this is some limitation. So far, because it was under the, I will not say under the clutch of AICTE, but it's a body of AICTE. All the programs that are under the purview of the AICTE, only those programs are accredited by NBA. Other programs are not.
Largely engineering and management programs.
Largely engineering and management, to some extent to pharmacy.
Pharmacy also.
Yeah, to some extent. Similarly, another body is there for agriculture institutions. ICAR giving their own accreditation for agriculture. It may be a graduation program, it may be a post-graduation program. Again, NBA also, as I mentioned, NBA program specific. It may be a post-graduation program. You may go for engineering, electrical engineering. You may go for only PG program of electrical engineering. And the same time, you may go for UG program of civil engineering also. Same in university. But ICAR, that is Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So what they do give the accreditation for agriculture programs, either maybe undergraduate or postgraduate. They have the mandate for that. Similarly, NCT also for teachers training program, what
Yes.
we call National Council of Teachers Education,
Yes.
NCT.
Yes.
They have been also given the mandate to conduct this. Of course, there was some sort of Supreme Court verdict. It has now been sub judice. They have not allowed to proceed further. All the NCT, they are asked to go for NAC. But still, it may. I'm expecting by November end, the judgment will come, and again NCT will be allowed to do that. So these are about this major accrediting body in India. But
Sir, a couple more that I'm aware of. Would you call them accreditation or would you call them regulator? And maybe they are both. But the Architectural Council of India does the architecture programs, from what I know.
Yes.
And I was thinking
BCI also did that, and yeah.
And the Bar Council.
Yes. Bar Council, this interesting things. The Bar Council and the Pharmaceutical Council of India, and so is this architecture, they are the regulating bodies. They have not given this mandate to go for the accreditation. They have never given. BCI only gives a regulatory body. They provide some sort of
approvals. These are almost approving bodies, licensing bodies in a way.
Licensing body, they have certain guidelines. You must have what I call it is a bin counts. That means this much of area, this much of books, this much of faculty, this number of this, you have to do that. Then you are allowed to do this. So they are only regulatory bodies.
Okay, got it. So that's important distinction. So far what I've heard you say is that NAC and NBA are really doing accreditation.
Yeah, ICAR and ICAR
also. And then the others are largely regulatory bodies for these very professionally oriented courses where they want to say that I'll only allow you to give a professional degree if you meet a certain minimum bar. Right.
But interestingly, one more thing for medical education.
Yes, that has been
when I go for medical education, in India, there's not a certain specific body for that. They also apply for the NAC. They go for the NAC accreditation. But like AACCME, the international body, that is Accreditation Council for Continuing Medical Education. That is again international body. That is an independent body. They give the medical. Like in Caribbean also, they have a CAMHP. That is Caribbean Accreditation Authority for Education in Medical and Health Professional. So these are the bodies, what they give an international bodies, autonomy bodies, they give accreditation for health, the professionals. But in India, they have to only go for NAC. So far, they don't have an accreditation body.
There's a quick question, which is a detailed question from Praveen Devanandan, who's saying that for applying for autonomy, now he's bringing up the issue of autonomy. It requires at least 3 programs to be NBA accredited. But what if only one program comes under NBA assessment scheme, sir? So one benefit, it seems that if your programs are accredited, then you can apply for autonomy also.
Exactly. Autonomy. As I told you, there are so many intangible benefits are there. And so institutions also get some sort of benefit on this. Autonomy, 2 things are there. One is a regulatory body, which gives the permission or the approval, whatever it is. Second is this body to which they are affiliated. That means institutions are affiliated to the universities. And they frame their curriculum, they frame their coursework, they frame their when the examination will be conducted, how the degree will be there. But if you are autonomous, this same regulatory body will be there, but you will not be directly under the control of the university. As long as you are autonomy, you can only conduct your examination. You can conduct your examination, but you cannot offer degree. You cannot give degree. And only university will give the degree. But framing the curriculum, conducting the classes, and conducting the examination is the autonomy. When the autonomy comes, so this autonomy comes in a 2 ways. First of all, these affiliating agencies, they must give you a clearance, and the regulatory also must give a clearance. And there are certain guidelines for that. One guideline is that if you are like where it is come, the deemed to be university concept also came. The same similar things are there. So here, at least 3 programs are to be accredited. That means 3 programs means it has to be NBA only. But now question comes, if I'm having only one management school, one engineering school, and one engineering programs, but there are so many other programs which doesn't come under the purview of the AICTE, how I will go for that? In that case, This is also accepted. This Ministry of Education has also prescribed, is also prescribed. You go for NAC. If you are the A, grade A, then you will be also given the opportunity of to be autonomous.
Okay. So there's one question of asked by Vijay Gupta, who's obviously raising an issue that is a little bit controversial, but it does come up that like with everything else, the whole process of accreditation, he says, has become quite somewhat, maybe he's saying corrupt, but maybe a little unethical, in the sense that faculty at many universities, he says, are filling forms, putting in fictional data. No one is really worried about the quality. So do you think that there is a danger that these processes are being subverted?
Yeah, this type of practices, it was there in previously. Even this NBA also accreditation, they would say he's not totally untrue in saying that some sort of impersonation data has been also being given there. Okay, it was happening. I am not completely denying to that. But now it is out of question, isn't it? Like say, if I talk about the NBA. NBA also, it has to be an AICTE approved courses. When AICTE approved courses, now the ICT has enabled that, that's brought the transparency. Every details like PCI also. If you want to be in one institution and want to transfer yourself to other institution, this institution has to give you NOC. Otherwise, your name cannot be appeared in the portal of the other institution. So similarly, AICTE has done this. So the Aadhaar card and PAN card and everything, it became this matter of past. But now in the portal, they have brought the 360, the 360-degree AICTE portal also there. So everything you are being tracked, where you have worked, when is the last work there. And even when during this, some sort of another surveillance is there. The agencies now see, if you mention that he is our regular employee, then you have to show minimum 3 months. Last 3 months salary slip must be dispersed. Not only salary slip, it has to be bank transfer, and you have to also show that. So now it is a thing of past, saying that there is a faculty manipulation was there. Yes, and
harder to do that now. Yes.
Yeah, it is so now transparent. Even I can say this. I say this. NAC has also taken one step further. One DVB is there, that means a third party verification is also there. And here, what they say, they ask different same data in 4 or 5 different phases in a different manner. And they reconcile that and find out whether all these are mapping or not. Where you have a second number of students, where you say some number of research paper, and he will say this year how much. And they take the information of 4 things. First is IC, All India, this AISCC, All India Survey for Higher Education. That's the basis of that. Unless you have registered that, you cannot go for that. And they take this other information, what you have submitted for an NIRF. So they have taken another information for if you are the AICTE approved, what in the portal, what you have submitted there. And similarly, 360 portal, what you have submitted there. And what is appearing in your website. So all this data now they do map. Now this
a lot of triangulation and verification can be
those who are not in this type of things, and only the T's, probably they are not aware of this how this process has gone so forward. So you cannot do anything now.
Dr. Patnaik, can we shift gears a little bit and talk about international accreditation? What is your experience and guidance on that?
International accreditation. Again, I will suggest that first of all, this NBA and NAC, one good thing is that these small universities and institutions, they need not to bother for international accreditation right now. If you are NAC, now Washington Accord is accepting us a NAC and NBA. So other organizations, other institutions, those who are under those countries are the Washington Accord, they accept us our degrees.
There's reciprocal arrangement.
Yeah, this. They accept us. So what is a recognition of this? But beyond that, like some of the B schools are there. Till now, AACSB, what I call Association of Advanced Colleges, Schools of Business, that is still is a number 1 in accreditation for business schools.
Right.
For medical also, for CAMHP and ACCME, These are the body for health professionals they used to go for. And ABET nowadays, this importance of ABET is gradually diminishing only after this MBA and the Washington Accord. I will not advise these small universities. That has only become some sort of, creating a perception or going for some sort of is setting yourself more the parameters and putting yourself in more survival. That is that. But internal accreditation has got its own importance.
So, sir, more moving towards the implementation. So we've talked about benefits. We've talked about the national bodies. We've talked about international. How do you prepare for accreditation? You know, is there some guidance and advice you can give people? And, you know, there are a lot of bodies, there are a lot of independent consultants, organizations that offer mentoring, help. So what is your advice on how to prepare and do a good job of this whole accreditation process?
Right, sir. It's a very, very good question. And now this government of India has made it very simple nowadays. All institutions, even small institutions, they need not to bother and worry for how I will go for this accreditation process. If you are going for this NAC, if you are willing for NAC, so UGC has provided one scheme that is known as Paramars scheme. So those who are having A+ accreditation standards in NAC, they are being asked, or they are being encouraged and provided some sort of final assistance also to guide and to handhold other institutions how to prepare all these documents. For
so mentoring them.
Yeah, mentoring them. And for every institution, UGC is paying them 6 lakhs rupees.
Oh, nice.
And similarly, NBA has also, AICT is also they launched the same program that was known as Margdarshak. This is Paramars and that is Margdarshak. Similarly, they are also paying 5 lakhs to all the institutions, those who want to mentoring them. So they need not to go for all the private consultants and everything. These things are very simple. It only will make it very complicated. And we say it is a big thing. It's nothing a big thing. This is very small things. You put everything in order. And the first thing, how to start this accreditation process, how to start with this, where I should start with this. Nothing. First of all, what type of accreditation you want to go for, decide. Whether you will want to go for this NBA Parivahan program or for the NAC. That means define the criteria for the level, which level you want to go for, number one. And the second is that for every level, you need not to collect all the data from this. From day one, from the write the word from go, do one thing. Accreditation, the first law of accreditation is document what you do and do what you have documented. This is the one line the philosophy. Document what you do and do what you have documented. That means you simply write down what you're doing, and it should be system oriented. Today you are doing something, some other people will come some other day, no, this is the not nice way to do things, I will change. No, you document. And that means you prepare your standard operation process for procedures for everything, SOP. Prepare the SOPs. And then you just interact with different institutions, learn from such other institutions, what are their best practices, and adopt those best practices. And the third thing is, if you've decided you will go for that, just you approach either the UGC or you go to the website, there UGC, you will find the names of all the institutions, those who are in Paramars scheme. Simply write to either the UGC or to those Paramars, those who are in Paramars. So simply write to them. They will happily come to you and they will guide you. You need not to hire any sort of big consultants and all things. This, yes. Third thing is ICT enabled has to be there. You should have a robust ERP system of yours. Because today you are sitting on the mountain of the enormous data and you have collected so many things, but we do not know how to arrange this. The numerous data creates a numerous also the confusions there. So these three things, then after that, your mentor will tell you this first, how you will test the validity of internal data. You put all this parameter-wise data. Then how to define the methods for this and internal check. You have to create one internal quality assurance cell. Internally, you think this someone is there 4 or 5 senior people who this make a committee and find this what they are doing it is right. It may not be able to standard up that what is regulatory or the accrediting body is saying. And then You invite your other people or peers also. Please come and check us whether we are doing this. We call it an external verification. But all this thing, it doesn't cost money. It needs only one thing, one determination. Yes, I will go for the quality. The thing there is no, this people are very scared, and we are this. Oh, this is a very big thing. It is just like searching a black cat in a dark room, which is not there. It is not that. It is very simple. Simply decide whether you are going for this and when you are going to submit. And you identify your margdarshak or the parameters.
Oh, very helpful. You are saying that don't have to get too carried away.
Nothing, no panic also.
You can also, you do it at your own behest.
Yes.
Get the help that is already available first and foremost.
Yes.
And from what you are describing, you're almost setting up a shadow accreditation team internally.
Yes, you have to
doing a self-assessment in a
exactly.
way, because you already know the parameters, you know the information. So you can tell already where you are falling short, where you are okay.
Yeah, right.
And Margdarshak and the other Paramarsh institution can also guide in that. So that's already a big amount of help that
yes,
you can get even before you get started. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
As we wind down, I want to take a few questions. I was already taking some questions, but one philosophical question that Professor Ramesh Chandar from Kurukshetra University is asking, that uniformity in the content and delivery process, which is really about accreditation, aapne standardization ki baat kari. So is that detrimental to diversity and creativity in education?
Yes, of course. Of course. Of course, this uniformity is a different thing. And what it says that accreditation is not saying that you only have to do this. It says at least you have to do this. So this is the one thing we confuse. We say if you make all these things standardized, probably the creativity is there, and we are not expanding everything. We have to this. There are certain the lines are there. We have to work along the line. It is not that. Certain parameters, certain things like this ISO. When I say you go for how you can know what your shortcomings are there. One is accreditation part. Another part is you complete all of the ranking competitions, what is coming, either an IRF or whatever this, it may be types, it may be this, all the things. You know your shortcomings first, number one. And accreditation is a process, say minimum this standard you have to maintain. But beyond that, it doesn't stop you. Right. The creativity, you can make it. Say, he says that you have to run the program and change your curriculum. And it never says that you have to run 4 years program. Say tomorrow you think, no, for the Bachelor of Engineering programs, I want to take the students from 10th class. Who stops you?
I see.
Nothing. This even the government of India says you can take. And today I just came to know the government of India thinking to take even the students from this 8th class also, you can take them. No problem. So this is of course, this is अभी चल रहा है 10th class में कहाँ पे इनोवेशन के लिए कहीं रुका गया. ये हमारा एक माइंडसेट है, ये क्रिएटिविटी हम नहीं. Minimum we maintain this. After that, it is just like you are feeling cold and you are putting a blazer on that.
This is the foundation. Yeah. This is the foundation. On top of this foundation is where you do your diversity and education. And
right, sir. If you are putting a coat, if it is still chill, who stops you to put an overcoat on that? But at least you put a sweat on this. Yeah.
Think of it as a minimum requirement.
Right, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I wanted to ask you, it's not in the question, but this is a question from me. So in an accreditation process, you typically get grades, because people say you are A, B, C, D, or whatever, A+. So how does one think about that? Because, sometimes I know that institution worry ki accreditation ke liye jayenge or, C mil gaya, so I won't be seen to be as good. But it is inevitable that, not everybody will reach A level from day one, right? So,
sir, okay. Of course, this is little bit of debatable. One thing is the NAC is people also wonder whether it is an accrediting body or it is a ranking body. It says A, B, A++, C, these things. Okay, this is one thing. But like an ABET, or in the say, even forget about the Indian contest, you will say ICAR, or you will say NBA. NBA doesn't give you a or B or C, it doesn't give it to that. Whether he will, if you are not fully prepared, if you score less than 650, they say you are not accredited. If you are scoring 650 to 750, they say you are provisionally accredited. That is only for 2 or 3 years. If you score more than 750, they say you are accredited for 5 years. So one is accreditation there. And there also you know that if you are provisionally accredited, that means there are some points are there where you have to this excel, we have to work hard on that. But NAC what says, and again it is the point, if I am accredited for go for accreditation, I will get C, and for another 5 years I have to live with that sigma that I am C class institution. It is not that. It is not that. Next cycle you can apply after 5 years, but no one stops you to even apply the next year.
I see. So you're not restricted. It's valid for 5 years, but you can upgrade sooner if you feel you are.
You're given this this is a time of 5 years. Even after within this 5 year, either you want to go or not, it doesn't stop you.
Right, right. Couple more questions. Dinesh Seth and some others have also asked that what are the implications now for all this digital content and digital versus physically delivered content? Are these accreditation body already taking into account the digitalization that is happening?
Yeah, for I think they mean about this delivery of the content.
Yes, the delivery.
Delivery of the content. Deliver the content. Previously, all this body they have allowed us 20%, maximum 20%. You can give that. But in this in pandemic, whether you agree or not, whether they allow or not, we all are being delivering 100% content digitally. And looking at this, all this NAC and NBA, UGC, and MOE also. 40% in SS, even when it comes, say, from 2022, if we are totally physically also operated, minimum 40% you can give it. And after that also, 100% digital content also you can give it. But again, you have to prove your worth, whether you are worth of providing or delivering this. Again, this question comes accredited. If you are a grade institution, 100% कंटेंट जिसको हम कहते हैं कि आप इसको डिस्टेंस एजुकेशन नहीं कर सकते तो एक्सटेंशन आप कहते हैं 100% भी कर सकते हैं. There is no bar. Now government is very flexible on this.
Okay. Couple of technical questions. I don't know if you know the answers to this. One is about Polytechnic institution. Are you aware of?
Polytechnic means these are diploma institutions. What some part of the country they call it a diploma institution. They call it diploma. Yeah, there have been entries after 10th class.
So what about accreditation for them? When should they start and so on?
They are not eligible for NBA, but they can any institution, even Polytechnic is also now comes under the ambit of NAC. But again, I say they have to complete one cycle. They can start it.
Okay. And there's one other question about, I don't know if it is related or not, I'm not aware, but it says what Dr. B. Shankara Subramaniam is asking, what is meant by horizontal mobility in curriculum setup, difference between add-on and certificate courses, field work and major project work?
Of course, this is not related to accreditation things. This is of your innovation and things you can.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. This is, but I think I should not comment on this.
Yeah. Let's leave it out. And is it fair to say, sir, as a closing question, this is from Thespal Kundan, that regulation is focused on inputs and accreditation is focused on outputs?
To some extent, yes. What exactly this regulatory body says, if you maintain these small things, like minimum this classroom, this space infrastructure you are having, this much number of faculty you are having, this much number of library, this much of curriculum you are having, then there will be a fairly good chances of learning environment there. But what accreditation says, you are excelling. You excel from this. This is the minimum requirement. The approval is being provided to you. Yeah. But whether you are the world standard, you set standard with you are competing you are really equipped to compete with the other parts of the globe कि आपका standard इतना है, ये accreditation, ये outcome नहीं है. This is not the outcome. Of course, some of the outcomes are being considered here, like how the students are even placed, how they are doing well in this society. A few part is there, and that is not exactly, but to some extent, yes. How well you are doing this, but this is not exactly the outcome. This is excellence.
How does one verify whether an institution is accredited or not? Can you actually go to the NBA or the NAC or the ABET and check whether they have, you can cross verify, right?
Yes, you can verify. Either you can go for this IC is there, or you can say go to the number of NAC portal. Every day they are in updating what is A, B, C, and NBA website also is saying A, B, C. Everything is there. Even the UGC is having the list of that.
Okay. Professor Patnaik, I have to say this was a tremendous masterclass on accreditation. I learned a lot myself. You know, we loosely talk about accreditation. Institutions that I am associated with are also going for accreditation. But you have clarified things with so much simplicity and clarity that I'm sure that others would have also found it very helpful. It was very educational and it was truly a masterclass. Thank you so much
Thank you,
for
sir.
taking the time. And it was very nice to be able to conduct this with you. I hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.